Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So again, welcome everyone. We are in chapter 4, and as I've always said, we have seen some really important concepts in this chapter. Concepts which are really pushing us to take us beyond what we think the world is. And in Shloka, like in the 18th one, when it talked about how that jnani is the person who can see inaction in action and action in inaction. I'm sure that must have made all of you think quite a bit on what is Krishna really saying here. Where is he really leading us to? And here he's really bringing out that essence of the absolute Jnana Yoga here. And that is why this chapter is aptly termed as renunciation of action in knowledge. Because Arjuna was, having a misconception really of what meditation is all about and what is truly the goal for all of us. So that is the aspect, which is what is the goal? Where should we really be striving as? We are at this point in time striving towards, common goals of trying to find happiness in our work, in our relationships, in our materials, objects. That is where we think our happiness is. And that is where we are constantly striving. But Lord Krishna is pushing us through the example of Arjuna to look at a much, much higher goal of what happiness is. And that happiness, which is really not in the outside objects, it's not in the relationships, it's not in the work and everything, but it is me, myself. So this is where that whole shlokas, after talking about non-action, he goes to Brahmarpanam, which is the shloka 24, where finally he shows about how the non-dual realization, which are shown in Brahmarpanam. That's where we saw this. So in reflection time, we've been talking about yajna so much, and it's so hard for us to recognize this word and to find how does it relate to our lives. So again, maybe this is a question that I want to ask all of you is, how do you relate the word yajna? Last week, Amlan, for example, did say it is sacrifice. And we have been talking about that it's a sacrifice of the ego, the small I, in the big I. So that is how we look at yajna being sacrifice, and yajna being sacrifice of my lower limited ego, the ego which is brought about because I have this body, I have this mind, I have this intellect, and in each one of them, I get to experience that I, because I always say, I'm from the body standpoint, I am this, or from a mind, I say I'm sad. From the intellect standpoint, I say I'm confused. So all these things we tend to equate ourselves as I, and yajna is considered as a sacrifice of that limited self of mine, which is at the level of body mind, where I'm sacrificing to the highest self. So again, all these things are great. It sounds beautiful. I think I know what I'm speaking. I think I know what yajna is. But again, the question comes is, how do I really relate to my life? How is this? How can I really, again, take this word yajna and understand? We even talked about sustainability, right? So I'm just pushing you to think a little more and say, tell me, how does it relate to what I'm doing today? Whether it is my work or whether it is anything, any thoughts on this?
Hari Om. From a very bare basic, because this, if I'm looking at it from this bare basic body standpoint, nothing beyond the body. I'm looking from a body. For example, sitting today right now for your class itself, if there was something else that I needed to get done or make sure whatever the other act, dinner, everything is wrapped up, kitchen is all cleaned up, making that's not a big deal at all. But the point is, it's a very, I'm trying to make sure that I have this peace of mind that I don't have anything else that I have to take care of. I'm only focusing on what at work right now, or listening to what you're saying and trying to understand what we are discussing. So from the body standpoint, the way the yajna is performing your duties, one's duties to the best of their abilities, if I'm taking it in that stride, whatever activity that I start to perform, I do it with total earnest. It's not half-hearted and it's not scattered brain. You're focusing, paying attention, and when we do it in that way, we are able to also complete it in a very not organized, but you can give yourself this. You can put yourself in a timetable, and you can stay on the timetable. You can stay, and you're able to, it just doesn't have to be household chores or your office work or anything. There are a lot of things by staying on that, you're able to, and it doesn't have to be, you can live your life, keep a schedule, and also reflect at the end of the day, reflect as to what it is that you have done. And this is just from a body standpoint. I'm not going beyond my own body. It's very body oriented. That is what at this point where I'm unable to go beyond this body.
That's a very honest way of looking at it, Suvarna. Very nice. And this is exactly what I have in my next few slides about why this word yajna of where I'm saying dissolving my lower self in the higher self, and it's a sacrifice of the lower self in the higher self, which is such an important aspect, because this is, I know I want to do a lot of things. I know I want to progress, but I'm not able to bring myself to do this. This is the thought that always goes through our head. Listening to Bhagavad Gita is good. I hear this word yajna, which is I have to sacrifice. That is good, because simply, let's start with a very basic example. First thing, when I want to get up early in the morning, I want to get up early in the morning. I want to do my Vedic chanting. I want to do my meditation. But unfortunately, the bed covers are too good there. They're too heavy. The comforter that I have, it's just not allowing me to get up. The warmth is, keeping me down. I'm just not able to get up, right? Another example, which you said, the body oriented, which is perfect. Suvarna, I did not prep you at all to tell me today what you're telling me, but let's start at the basic body level, right? Even things like, okay, the new year started, I knew I wanted to lose weight. Let's not kid ourselves. There are so many good goals we can have, but we always start with this one goal, I want to lose weight. Right? How many of us are really able to keep that simple goal, Or let's do another one. I want to give up this favorite food that I always have, samosa or pizza or something. Am I really doing this? It starts with at that basic level of this yajna. When I say this word yajna at the lower level of the body level, we are giving up an attachment of the body to say at a higher level where I'm operating from the mind level. So that is another way to look at yajna, which is giving up the lower self for a higher self, to giving up my body oriented stuff to progress at the higher level of the mind stuff. So this is why I just, I thought this picture was too cute. So wanted to put that to show how we cling on to our own things which give us the most satisfaction, And this is why I've mentioned this quote before, from Pandava Gita, which is Mahabharata. We have Duryodhana saying, Janami dharma nachame pravrittihi, janami adharmaha nachame nivrittihi, kenapi devena hridi sthitena, yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. He says, I know what is right, but I can't bring myself to do it. I know what is wrong, but I can't stop myself from doing it. It is as if there is some power situated in my head, whatever it is, to tell me what to do, and therefore I do it. Again, so powerful, because we have to sometimes get ourselves to basics to really understand, how this works. And this is why when Amlan asked the question last time, tell me really what this word yoga means. In one, yoga is one of the yajnas that is given, right? So that yoga actually refers to many times the Patanjali yoga. Patanjali yoga, which has got the niyamas and the yamas, the exercises, and the do's and the don'ts, if you will. That's how I look at the yamas and the niyamas, the do's and the don'ts. They are there for a certain reason, because we have so much amount of kleshas. We say the kleshas is the impurities in our mind, which they're so strong. And that's the malicious power of the impurities. That is so true. That is so powerful. They literally overpower this willpower that we have. And because of that, we keep on doing things that we are doing. And that's really how the yogas works, is the niyamas and the yamas. They address those aspects which we want to get rid of. And just another cute picture here. Again, this COVID thing and all that would have brought up this, being what is that, habituated to seeing Netflix, or anything, one episode after, or YouTube, you go to, sometimes I like to watch Mr. Bean. One episode of Mr. Bean is over, you want to watch another one, So this is so amazing. We continue to say, okay, after this episode, you know what, I'm going to get back to what I want. It just doesn't happen. So this is why the aspect of yajna is important. This is why the aspect of yoga is important. I'm just spending a little time to really bring about why these 12 yajnas which have been mentioned here, because it started off with Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, which was the highest form of yajna, where everything is yajna. The ladle is yajna, the fire is yajna, the performer is yajna, the fire is yajna, everything is yajna. But to understand that aspect, the next 12 verses were given with all the yajnas. So this is again another very beautiful quote I came across, which, in Brahmarpanam, the idea is, I am Brahman, I am that superpower, I am that absolute reality, which is a happiness, which is a bliss, everything. But yet, what is happening is that this Brahman itself is overpowered by the all these koshas, and this koshas in which there are the sense organs, the 5 senses of seeing, touching, hearing, smelling, tasting, all that which is looking outside. And in there, that senses are pulled by the object. So now you see this word is such a beautiful thing, which is kinkarasya kinkaraihi ahaha kinkari kritaha, which is, alas, I've become a servant of my servant's servants. Who is the servant here? The servant is the mind. And the mind's servants are these sense organs, the 5 senses. And the 5 senses have become subservient. They have become, a servant to the sense objects and everything here. So they're so powerful that they've made, me like a servant to them. The sense objects are now the, the king, which is commanding me to do all this. So, if something is there to eat, I just go there. I don't even think that it is there. So for all these reasons, this to me, the shloka touches it all. Kinkarasya kinkarahi, aham kinkari krito. I have become a servant of the servants. So therefore, we need yajna to that extent. And again, I don't know, Suvarna, we never talked about it, but when you brought out the yajna at the body level, which is so important, all these things is where, we're going with. So this is why, again, I'm putting all these slides here so that you will see the connection of these slides to the actual shlokas when it comes. Another one which I want to put out, which is actually from Carl Jung, our Western psychologist here, how the tapo yajna, which is about austerity, and one of the austerity which is always told to us is about how to remain maunam. And when we were at the Sandipani Satnadhyam, every Tuesday was considered to be Maunam Day. We, nobody spoke to each other. All you did was listen to the lectures and then did mananam on the lectures. And, that's so many of them still, a lot of people practice this. Sometimes if you're not able to practice the whole day, at least you tell yourself for 2 hours, I will not talk to anyone. So here Carl Jung is saying that talking is often a torment to me, and I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of words. That talking itself is really such a waste of time that sometimes I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of what I said. So this is so silence, solitude for me is a fount of healing, which makes my life worth living. So that is also in one of the shlokas which will come up. And therefore, in our scriptures, we have this hitam cha, mitam cha, priyam cha. Very 3 words. And again, I'm quoting Vijay Samay Mantri here. He would always say, is it necessary? Is it, what is, Vijay is not there, but I don't know, Madhuri, if you remember what he would say, the 3 things, study group, so I remembered about him when he said, is it beneficial? Is it measured? And is it pleasant? If it is not any of them, don't even say it, right?
Yes.
So how important for communication, very important for parents, very important for all of us at work. How do we measure the number of words we say, how we say it, what kind of volume, voice we say it, all this. So all these things are really brought out in, I wanted to bring this as a nutshell of how yajna, the sacrifice of the lower self to the higher self, all these things are brought out in what we are doing here. So with that, these are the verses which actually which covers all these things as yajnas. And so we will continue here and we will chant those 20 to 30 shlokas as we, please do pay attention to the words which was coming out of these shlokas, Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturto Dhyayaha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Tyaktva Karma Phala Sangam Nitya Tripto Nirashrayah Karmanyabhipravrittopi Naiva Kinchit Karoti Saha Nirashiryata Chittatma Tyakta Sarva Parigraha Shariram Kevalam Karma Kurvannapnoti Kilbisham Yadrichalabasantushtaha Dvandvatito Vimatsaraha Samah Siddhava Siddhaucha Kritvapi na nibadhyate Gata sangasya muktasya Jnana vastita chetasaha Yajna yacharata karma Samagram praviliyate Brahmarpanam brahma havihi Brahmagnau brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina Daivameva pare yajñam Yogina paryupasate Brahmagnava pare yajñam Yajne naivopajuhvati. So this was one of the first series of the yajnas. Second one, Shrotra dinindriyanyanye Sanyamagnishu juhvati Shabdadin vishayananye Indriyagnishu juhvati. So this is the 2 yajnas we talked about. One of them is the control of the senses. The first one is a control where you're offering the aspect of hearing everything into the sense organs. And the other one is about that even as we are enjoying the world, how to be in a state of mindfulness. It is, if some food is right there, not just go and grab it, or if something is smelling so beautiful, like a flower in the garden or something, of course we have to smell it, but just because you smell it doesn't mean that, okay, now next allow the mind to go with it and say that, oh, this is so beautiful. Now I wish I had a perfume of jasmine or whatever, just enjoy it, leave it. So that's the beauty of this shloka, which is coming out here. And then Sarvani Indriya Karmani Prana Karmani Chapare Atma Sanyama Yogagnau Juhvati Jnana Deepite. Again, telling about, continuing the thing about senses, offer it into the, all the functional senses, as well as the functions of the life forces, which are the five senses, the five organs of action, offer it into the mastery of the mind. So here it is earlier it was the restraint of the senses, and here it is the mastery of the mind, which is talked about. Then Dravya Yajna Stapo Yajna Yoga Yajna Tatha Pare Swadhyaya Jnana Yajnascha Yathaya Samshita Vrataha. So this is the one which Amlan also had this question here about what is exactly the yoga. So we will spend time a little bit on that. We already said Dravya Yajna is the aspect of sacrifice of materials, which is like charity. Tapo Yajna is the austerity, which is the practice of the various austerities like fasting, which primarily fasting. And then we'll talk about the Yoga Yajna. So I just had this picture, which I should have brought it earlier itself. But then, let's see. Okay. So, yeah. So the Yoga Yajna basically is the idea of how, where we have, in a sense, trying to recognize that we have these five sheets of the body. Now, this picture can be a little misleading in the sense, it is not as if Atman is sitting right inside, and it is covered by all the five sheets. But in reality, Atman is everywhere, right? Atman is the individual Brahman, we might call it. So Brahman is everywhere, but that Brahman is limited by thinking that it is these five layers. So the idea of Yoga Yajna is trying to recognize how I can actually recognize that I am that Atman by doing the exercises that is needed for me to share, for me to have a control over all these five senses, five koshas. Sorry, five koshas. So we have the Annamaya Kosha, which is a body sheath. We call this is a body sheath here. And for this one, we have this eightfold path by Patanjali, which is really necessary for us to integrate our entire personality. So I already said it is the yamas and the niyamas. And then we have this Manomaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha. The next one is the Pranamaya Kosha. So the Pranamaya Kosha is where the yogasanas, every yogasana we practice the pranas, the control of the pranas itself. Then for Manomaya Kosha, we have, like meditation is one of the aspects which can be talked about. And the for meditation, of course, and Vijnanamaya Kosha is the Jnana Yoga, which is talked about here, which is the aspect of the study, Swadhyaya and everything. So that the Yoga Yajna primarily is for the aspect of the Patanjali Yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga, which is discussed in this area. And these koshas are like, it's not as if they're all integrated in one or whatever. I've just given these examples, 3 different examples. You can think about like these Russian dolls, which one layer goes into the other. You can easily take one of them out, right? Or, the glove of the hand, which we put, you can actually take this out. There's no connection with this, or the sheath and the sword. This is how really our 5 koshas are. And therefore, the Yoga Yajna is something for doing the, the exercises to recognize that I have control over the body layer and the pranamaya. So those things is what is mentioned. Does that explain, does that help you, Amlan? If Amlan is here.
Yeah. Hari Om, Sunitha. Yeah,
Hari Om.
yeah, it is very nice. nicely you have put together. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I just wanted to make sure, because I think I went a little fast and didn't spend too much time on what really the yoga yajna is. And then Jnana Yajna, we talked about a little bit. It's that whole aspect of chanting and everything. Also, the study of the scriptures, everything pointing out towards whichever is giving me that aspect to tell me who I am. That is the Jnana Yajna, where I'm offering even that knowledge to the fire of, so the fire is Brahman, right? It's a fire of knowledge. So to that fire, I'm offering even that knowledge, which is, having understood that, I'm offering that knowledge also, because ultimately even knowledge is only a means towards understanding that I'm Brahman. So then let's chant Shlokam. Apane jukvati pranam, prane panam tatha pare, prana panagati rudva, pranayama parayanaha. We discussed this also now. Again, the control of this breath, the offering, the outward breath and control of the inward breath. The outgoing is offered in the incoming, and the incoming is offered in the outgoing. So control of this one gives you the control over the life energies of the body. Here again, the idea is when the pranas are in control, then our focus of the mind is more available for the higher goal, whether it's a study of the scriptures, whether it is meditation, whether it is the nididhyasanam aspect, mananam, everything. So that is why this shloka has come here. And shloka number 30, apare niyata haraha pranan praneshu jukvati sarve pyete yajna vidaha yajna kshapita kalmashaha. So some of them, I mean, again, we did this last time, just as a repeat thing here is ahara, referring to diet. So others with well-regulated diet offered as sacrifice. The life breaths in the fire of prana. All these are knowers, or all these are knowers of sacrifice, whose sins are destroyed by sacrifice. Again, trying to show about how the control of ahara is a very important aspect, and the control of the pranas, even hunger. For example, hunger is considered as a disease. So in our shastras, it is said, you have to eat only that much to appease your hunger. But we have made appeasing hunger as a huge industry, right? You have all kinds of restaurants and everything, which is there to, really where the senses can totally go astray. So that is, the shloka is very important from that. And every time when we go to, our mind is thinking about going to a restaurant, think about this, and then that will help us control the food. At least that is what is more important. We said last time about how eating should be in such a way that only 50% of your stomach should be, filled with food, 25% with water, and the 25% with air. That was the whole idea of this shloka here. So then now coming to shloka number 31, Lord Krishna is talking about what is the value of the yajna prasad. What is the prasad buddhi aspect of the of yajnas, and how it is important to be happy with whatever comes in our life, and also to how the remnants of the sacrifice should be offered. So essentially, it is this aspect of giving up our kartritva bhava, our doership. That is what is explained in this shloka here. Yajna shishtam bhujaha, yajna shishtam bhujaha, yanti brahma sanatanam, yanti brahma sanatanam, Nayam lokosya yajnasya. Nayam lokosya yajnasya. Kutonyak kuru sattama. Kutonyak kuru sattama. So he's saying yajna shishtam amritaha bujaha. The eaters of the remnants of sacrifice, that is a nectar, they go to the eternal Brahman. And then na ayam lokaha asti aya ayagnyasya. Even this world is not for non-sacrifices. How then the other, O best, among Kurus? So yajna shishtaha, which is the remnants of sacrifice. Amrita bujaha, those who have tasted nectar. Yanti obtains the eternal essence, which is sanatanaha, which is ever existing. And not in this world. Lokaha is the non-performer, ayagnyasya. How can this, even in this world is not for non-sacrifices. So how is this possible? So the whole idea is, what he's trying to say is that when we perform a yajna, the prasad from that has to be distributed and shared with others. Again, when I think about this, I think about classic Kathopanishad, about how we have Nachiketa's father. He did all that yajna to gain the higher worlds, but he didn't do it in the most proper spirit, where he had to give up absolutely everything. And Nachiketa, being a small boy, he observes this and he says, what about me? He doesn't want, he's so sincere. He wants his father to really get the benefit of the sacrifice. But then his father is not doing so. To protect his dad, he says, Dad, you can give me away. Because, Nachiketa, his dad was giving up all those cows, which were very old and everything, to the Brahmanas. And that's not how it should be done. So he says, just give me away, and he offers himself as a kind of a sacrifice. So idea being that only that person who is able to totally give the prasada of the yajna, that person, goes to the high levels, or, is able to recognize that higher self. So moving on to shloka number 32. Now you see that Lord Krishna is trying to bring this aspect of why this yajna is nothing but karma yoga. So that aspect is shown here, where yajna is nothing but with this knowledge of, of knowing what a higher self. Now when I do any sacrifice, is the highest form of karma yoga. So he says, this idea is shown actually, well, we'll just chant the shloka, then you will see about how this compares with the 3rd chapter, where he says that if somebody doesn't do that yajna, how he's compared to a thief. In the 3rd chapter, where we discussed about stena, the word stena was talked about. Evam bahuvidha yajnaha. Evam bahuvidha yajnaha. Vitata brahmano mukhe. Vitata brahmano mukhe. Karmajan vithitan sarvan. Karmajan vithitan sarvan. Evam jnatva vimokshase. Evam jnatva vimokshase. So in this manner, evam bahuvidaha, various type of yajnas have been explained. So we are coming to almost the end of how he has said, all the 12 yajnas have been talked about. Then have been explained. Brahmanaha mukhe karmajan vidhi tan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase. So now, once having known all of them, and having known all of them as born out of action, so it is only our own vasanas and the desires which lead to the final actions, right? And so once we understand that it's only through action, then finally that I can actually do all these yajnas, the sacrifices can be done. Once that is understood, one should be liberated. One will be liberated here. And that's the promise that Lord Krishna is giving here. Evam bahuvida yajnaha vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidhitan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase. So with this, this leads to purification of mind. And with that purification, one is able to reach that state of actionlessness. It's only through action that one can actually reach that state of actionlessness. So finally, in Shloka 33 is, he talks about the best yajnas, which is coming up here. Shreyan dravyamaya yajnat, Shreyan dravyamaya yajnat jnana yajnas tatha jnana yajna parantapa jnana yajna parantapa sarvam karma kilam partha sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate jnane parisamapyate shreya dravyamayat yajnat shreya dravyamayat yajnat jnana yajnat parantapa sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. I was looking at the transliteration and the Sanskrit, and my mind was, you can see how it is sometimes difficult to, when in English it comes out a little differently here. So he's saying, Shreyan, superior to the sacrifice with objects. Dravyamaya, which we came across this word before, which is materials, the sacrifice of material objects. Shreyan dravyamayat yajnat jnana yajna parantapa. So the knowledge is more important than is the sacrifice with knowledge. Sarvam karma akhilam partha. All actions ultimately in their entirety, O Partha, is culminating only in knowledge. Parisamapyate, it culminates ultimately in knowledge. So what is really talked about here? Why is he really bringing about the aspect of sacrifice of objects, and why is that necessary? Is the purpose is for all these yajnas ultimately is nothing but this aspect of getting the purity of mind, chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi and chitta ekagrata. Chitta ekagrata meaning one-pointedness of the mind. So chitta ekagrata and chitta shuddhi, which is really talked about here on the aspect of Shreyan dravya mayat yajnat jnana yajna parantapa sarvam kilam partha jnana yajna parisamapyate. So this aspect is now being taken of what is really that self-knowledge is aspect which we will be discussing in the shloka number 34. So up till here, the 12 yajnas have been completed, and I wanted to just open it up now for, is there any question or doubts or something that you want to comment on so far? Before we go to the next shloka, which is a very beautiful and a nice shloka. It's considered to be also something which we have to memorize and contemplate upon.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sri Ram, what does, or I guess, how do you sacrifice with knowledge? What does that mean?
Very good question. So the whole idea of sacrifice with knowledge, the whole, the ultimate knowledge, what Vedanta is trying to show here is the knowledge that I am not this body, mind, intellect. Okay? And I am something else. I am that absolute Brahman. So that is the ultimate knowledge. So that knowledge, using that knowledge, I'm sacrificing this lower self in that higher self. So that is how you have to look at this word knowledge here. It is that knowledge. Now, this knowledge which is allowing us to go forward at a very high level, even that has to be given up in order to know that I am that higher self. So simple example is, we have given this example in our study groups, which is the example of the pole vaulter. Okay, the pole vaulter, what does he do? He first prepares himself really well in his art as a pole vaulter to know how to take this pole, run. He has to practice his running. He has to practice his technique of how he's going to go over that bar with the pole, right? I think you know that thing of pole vaulter. So now this example is very important because that pole is the one which is going to help him get the balance, get the grip and everything. And that is the an analogy to the knowledge. So you use that knowledge to move forward, okay? And ultimately, just like the pole vaulter, where he gives up the pole in order to jump. If he holds on to the pole, he's not going to be able to jump, correct? So too, this knowledge that I am that absolute Brahman, it takes you all the way. It is only through an intellect that you can try to understand this, because Brahman is not visible. Brahman has no taste, nothing, whatever, you cannot feel with the senses. It is only through Shravana, Mananam and Nididhyasanam that you can understand this aspect of the fact that I am that absolute Brahman. But even that knowledge ultimately has to be given up. And you will be able to give up the knowledge only when, through Nididhyasanam, which is the final exercise, which takes away all the Viparita Bhavana. We say Viparita Bhavana, which is the all this wrong notion of who I am. When I give up that thing, I reach that state of Brahmanhood. And even this word reach is not the right word, because reach means as if I'm reaching a destination. But reach meaning that I recognize who I am. So that is the sacrifice of knowledge that is needed in order to be able to get to that state. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So that is why this shloka is kind of a nice one, which ultimately he's trying to say that even that knowledge has to be completely sacrificed or is offered as a sacrifice. I mean, just, of course, this is again another one where when you look at the shloka by itself, we are unable to get that meaning out of it, But yeah, any other thoughts or questions?
Sunitha, I always thinking this is highest level of explanation, but other than this, always I was thinking Jnana Yajna is spreading out whatever knowledge you acquire, you will share with the people or something like that. That is also Yajna, I thought. But this is highest, we have.
Yeah, correct. This word here has to be understood as something which is pertaining to me individually. Matter of fact, actually, even the word Jnana Yoga, in Jnana Yoga came prior. At that time, it indicated the study of scriptures.
Yeah.
But here, the study has been indicated more as a way of understanding it and then giving it up. Some other simple analogies that is always given is, the ladder. You have to give up the lower rung of the ladder to reach higher. So too, in our own knowledge, among the knowledge levels, I wouldn't say not like how we go to, kindergarten to 5th grade to 6th grade, that we are improving on a particular subject. That's not the kind of knowledge here, but it is that knowledge which allows me to give up my layers of ignorance about who I am. That is the sacrifice of knowledge.
So that's realization, actually, complete realization. That's it.
Yes, final realization.
Final realization.
And that's why the pole vault example I always feel is the right one to say here. You have to sacrifice the pole in order to reach that state.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Over here, actually, that the 5 sheets come, actually, they explain this very well. You have to remove all the sheets and everything. And then you also have to, along with the Anandamaya Kosha, the blissful, that also you have to give up to actually go to find Brahman. That is what comes to mind over here. That is, for me, that was the analogy I was making in my.
So when we are trying to say that we are giving up one for the other. So for example, we talked about how with the mind you can control the Pranamaya Kosha and the Annamaya Kosha. But then Anandamaya Kosha cannot be taken exactly that, because Anandamaya Kosha is nothing but the Vasana layer. And the Vasana layer, it's because of Anandamaya Kosha that we actually have all the other layers. So yes, in that sense, you're right. That is, the Anandamaya Kosha ultimately is the one which is controlling all the 4 layers, and the Anandamaya Kosha has to be in control. The idea is, you can't give up all your vasanas, or it's not totally giving it up kind of a thing, but being in total control over it and recognizing that these vasanas cannot disturb me at all, because I am not the vasanas. I am beyond the vasanas.
I was thinking one point in a very, if you go back to that slide.
Which one?
Yeah. So I was thinking here in a very, you explained in a very higher level, in a Brahman standpoint. I was thinking this can be explained in a very layman language. Who doesn't know about Brahman? Maybe who doesn't know about all the Pancha Koshas? From that standpoint also, this sloka makes sense. For example, suppose I am the person, I give some object as a sacrifice to somebody or some organization or some community. So that sacrifice is one sacrifice, right? Giving some objects. And then another type of thing, for example, I have knowledge of Vedas or whatever, and then I teach people and spread that knowledge, and that is also a kind of sacrifice. Basically, I am sharing that knowledge with other people. So sharing the object, compared to that, sharing the knowledge is better than that. So that's what I was thinking. Then
that is what Madhuri was also referring to.
Giving object is better than that. Sharing knowledge, basically. That's what I was looking at.
Very good. Very good. That is also, you can look at it that way also.
Another last important thing here is the culminating knowledge. Everything finally, no matter whatever round you go through, whatever process you go through, finally everything culminates in knowledge. And in the end, you leave the knowledge also, basically.
Give up that knowledge also. Yeah. Anything which allows us to move forward in life. I mean, again, I think Shardanti would always joke, right? She would say, come forward. I mean, physically, like when people are sitting at the back, you have to move forward in life, so come forward, come and sit in the front chairs, So we always think, moving forward in life is, getting a big house or whatever, and leading a better life and all that. But these shlokas are really pointing out to the other way around, which is no, give up all that, do this. Any action, and actually this is, in that sense, that is why this is a powerful shloka, because it is reminding us that no matter what you do, are you really moving forward in life? Moving forward in at the higher level, giving up your objects, giving up your comforts, giving up this one. In every action I do, is that really happening? Because it's all mental. This is the important thing. It has to be remembered. It is mental, not the physical aspect we are talking about. But the physical is very, very important, because it's the physical that is distracting us. And this is why we have the whole sannyas ashram and the whole path of the sannyas, which is there to remind us at the end of the day, if I am Brahman, do I really need everything around me? So this, I know it's a very, I should probably leave at this point, because that is the ultimate statement. If I am Brahman, what am I doing in this world, acquiring everything? Something to ponder on, something to think about. Okay, so let's, so shloka number, I'll chant the shloka number 34, and we will continue with from 34, because I think we're pretty much done with all the yajnas. Unless if anybody has a question, you can send it and we will use that as a reflection, but we'll move forward from 34 next week. This is, by the way, also a very important shloka. If there are some of these shlokas, if you're interested, again, when we finish 4th chapter, I will put it up for memorization, so it can come back to us. The point about memorization is, when some of these shlokas we memorize, it will come to us. I've seen that happening to me, actually, because I would have, been tempted to do something, maybe have another vada or something like that at this Anakshetra, I'll think about it. I'll think about that shloka for that 50% food thing. Tadvidhi pranipatena, Tadvidhi pranipatena, Pariprashnena sevaya, Pariprashnena sevaya, Upadekshanti te jnanam, Upadekshanti te jnanam, Jnaninastatvadarshinaha, Jnaninastatvadarshinaha, Tatvidhi pranipatena, Pariprashnena sevaya, Upadekshanti te jnanam, Jnaninastatvadarshinaha. So it's ultimate, where he says it culminates in that knowledge. Know that by long prostration, by question, and by service. So how important it is, this aspect of question, not to, take anything for granted, to be able to reflect, to be able to question, to be able to go to the right teacher. That is what is the ultimate thing, what he's saying here. Nothing happens without that guru. So upadekshanti te jnanam, upadeksha, which is that knowledge, you will be instructed. I'm sorry, jnanam is the knowledge. Upadeksha, which is instruction. Upadekshanti te jnanam, jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha, by the wise who have realized the truth. So there are some important things which is explained here, which is pariprashnena sevaya. So next week when we meet, I want to bring in one Mundaka Upanishad quotation, and also this especially the Mundaka Upanishad quotation. We'll talk about that one. Is this aspect of sitting at the foot of the teacher, that Upanishad, that example, we'll talk about that. So tat vidhi, know that, surrender to the feet of that guru, and through inquiry and by service to the teacher, one will get that knowledge. So that's the idea here. So we'll meet. I'm sorry, I didn't change the date here. We'll meet next week, May 11th, I think. Yeah. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let me stop the light.